said before, like it's just like adding sugar to lemonade. So you just need to keep
Okay.
adding sugar, and hopefully they will wake up to their own dukkha.
Hang on a second. Let's start the video recorder. Okay.
May I add to the question? I am Yasin.
Let's give an intro. The Sangha on Sunday. This is Sunday morning in the UK, and we've got a question about how do you handle the joy, especially really big joy, when you're around people who won't have anything to do with it. Is that a way of saying
Yes,
it?
especially the people that are close to you, like your relationships, etc., that you cannot just leave the situation, or you cannot just let it be. But I mean, you can always let it be, but yeah, you have deeper caring, I guess, attachment to those people. You kind of get frustrated more.
Okay. Who said they had an answer?
Not an answer. I wanted to add to the question, but Carl already addressed it. Basically, you know, how do you gladden your mind and become happy when engrossed in a layman's life, especially relationships with family and so on and so forth?
Oh, so
Especially
you're
relating
asking.
to the clinging part. So from the point of view of other people, it is good to cling to them, so they see it as a bad thing if you stop clinging to certain things. So that's what I'm interested to also hear you speak about.
All right. Uh, Let us say offhand, before we go any further, that clinging to other people has both advantages and disadvantages. Okay. And the next thing to mention is that you guys are actually talking about two different things. Okay. The similar circumstance, but his mind state is different than yours because you've already bought into it and he hasn't yet. Okay. He's still holding his joy to where you've already given yours away. Is that a fair way of stating it?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, why'd you give away your joy? Just didn't have enough to go around? Was that what happened?
Yes, I'm not at the point where I'm able to transmit in a good enough way that, from the outside, I don't seem like, just arrogant or out of touch with reality or something like that.
Okay.
So I'm not
Uh,
not skillful enough, to spread the joy, let's say.
all right. So this is actually quite common. Uh, the first thing that I would like to do is start dancing around a word that is in English language, but it's really not appropriate to what we talk about. And that is the word compassion, because that's what's really wrapped up in this conversation is compassion. Now, the Pali word karuna, it's got a slight little twist, and I've never been able to quite describe it. But I've come across something that I think will do fairly well for the word compassion, and that is do no harm. Whatever you do, do no harm. Now, this is an ancient teaching. It's actually part of the Hippocratic Oath. And what makes it hypocritical is the doctors go around hurting people all the time while they've taken an oath. And so that would be the word compassion is above all, do no harm. Now, if you try to make somebody joyful when they're downright set on not being joyful, they're going to resist you, and that resistance that they put up is doing them harm and you harm also. So we have to like kind of learn where the boundaries are. And another important quality that we can talk about is that when you, as we're practicing anapanasati, remember that we start doing it in seclusion to start building up those mental muscles so that we can do the heavy lifting that both of you are talking about right now. And so what that basically means in a way is, okay, it's time for both of you to go back to the gym. Let's go pump some mental muscle and get that joy juice really flowing so that you cannot get robbed of that, that whatever fire that's there, you've got enough joy or enough gushy fire retardant to put the flame out rather than putting something on the fire that's going to make it worse. So this is part of the practice then of, in fact, you both can take your individual story back to your private place, call it on the cushion for those who talk about like meditation, and reflect upon this in the sense, well, how could I have handled it differently, both at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end of this disaster? What could you have done differently? If you had woken up, how would you have handled it differently? One of the ways that we could say is that if I've lost my mojo, then the best thing to do is to say bye-bye, check out, go away, leave the scene of your own accident. That's the right, just take a hike. Say, excuse me, I've got to go to the bathroom. Then do your dumping in there. But you don't dump on other people when you've lost it, okay? So that's an important point is that when you get to the point that you know that you can't handle it anymore, exit stage left. That's the way that the Buddha would, that's, if you think about it, that's the obvious solution, is to get out of there if it's dangerous. If you're in a warplane, leave the battlefield. That in fact, in the time of the Buddha, they actually had a particular kind of, let's call it advice rather than a restriction. But the advice was is that monks were not supposed to hang out in those areas that had one of these four characteristics. Number one is war. If this is a battlefield, leave the scene. If this is a flooded area, leave the scene. If this is a drought, leave the scene. Or if there is pestilence of all different kinds, like a disease from COVID all the way up to grasshoppers, I suppose. Then if there's a plague or something going on, then leave the scene. Now, in a big kind of way, you would want that because in any of those kind of situations, the monks are going to be a drag on the people because they're already in pretty bad state. And so it's better for the monks to go someplace that's already easy to live. And so you can take that mentality into an individual situation so that if it's a dangerous situation, the easiest thing to do is to leave, as long as it's still polite and you can leave. Because you can actually it can get so far is that they don't want you to leave and they'll make sure that you don't. But let's say that we didn't.
Can I use?
Pardon?
Can I use for every kind of place evaluation of the quality of the place, the evaluation factors for the monasteries?
Oh, absolutely. Go ahead and talk about what you're talking about then. What about?
Yeah, there are certain requirements in certain suttas that talk about the requirements for a monastery or something like this. A good monastery for a monk. How to find a good monastery.
I'm not.
For example, that you find nobles, that you have access to noble people, that there is enough food, that the people around, the lay people, are wealthy enough to sustain the monastery, that the monastery is quite far away from all trouble, things like that.
Actually, now that you're mentioning those things, recall, yes, that So that kind of goes along with what we're talking about here, except in this kind of situation, the guys are in the lay life and they have to put up with a kind of a monster that is beyond imagination. It's called a family.
There we go, Carl.
And when we see the family as a monster, it's going to remain one. But when we see the family not as a monster anymore, but a natural extension of yourself. And if you're going to be kind and gentle to yourself, then you're going to be kind and gentle to the family. Now, there's something really amazing about society that way. And let us say that it goes under the label of domestic violence. You've all obviously heard that term before. Okay. What does that mean? That means that at home, people feel safe enough to become violent. They won't become violent in front of the cops. They won't be violent in front of the sheriff or in front of the boss or even his barmates. So he'll leave the bar, perhaps going home drunk, and then he gets violent, right? So if families are attuned to that, in other words, we behave our worst around the people that we're closest to. This is part of the reason why the Buddha says that grief comes from those who are dear. That we get more grief in our society, we get more grief from our family than anywhere else, especially when we're young. Think about it. Where does all your grief really come from? Haven't you had quite a lot of it come from your family? We recognize that, that's a tendency, that we are, in fact, on our worst behavior at home where we feel safe. In other words, if you uh, do something extremely rude to a friend, air how close he is, he'll leave if you act bad enough. The thing about family is that there's nothing so bad that you can do to them that they'll get rid of you completely. Now that's not actually true. That you can get thrown out of your own family. But the point that I'm making is that um, because we kind of feel uh, attached or joined at the hip with the family, that it's okay for us to do whatever we want to do, however we feel, and get away with it. The fact is that we don't. We don't get away with it. They will find a way of retaliating. They'll get us back. So in many cases, then families are just your closest fighting buddies. That's especially true with husband and wife until we do something kind of strange and unusual. And that is, you kind of give in to the family and let them have their way. Let them be that way, have their way, in the sense that if they get their way, perhaps after they get their way, you can talk them into enjoying that they've got their way. And so that's the way of kind of spreading joy, is by giving in and let anybody whatever they want and have their way. Um, a very strange little example of that is, let's say that the child is in the sitting basket of the grocery cart. You know, they have a little chair there for the kids to sit, the little kids. So, mommy makes the wrong turn down the cereal or the candy aisle. There that cereal is, and the kid wants that cereal. And he's going to have a tantrum if he doesn't get it. So, what does mom do? I've seen women actually leave and abandon their child in the grocery aisle because they don't know how to handle the situation. Others will do even worse things, like punish the child to get him to shut up. There's an easy solution, and that is give the child whatever he's grasping for. put it right in his hands with the idea, okay, well, this has got to stay at the store, but you can keep it with you while we drive around. Okay, so this is an example of the kind of behavior that we can have with our families, is give in to them and get them cooled down so that then you can deal with them at the level of power that you actually have. So, Yasin, somewhere along the line, then, tell us about it. What happened actually where you lost it, where you lost your mojo? You remember the moment? What was the remark that was made? Who made it, etc., like that?
So I think my case is different than Carl's because he said he can enter into jhana, so he is already happy, and his situation is a bit different. In my case, is more like sati arises during uh, when we have already stepped in the cow pie. So there is a
Yes,
situation already proceeding, and I'm there, and I'm like, okay, things have hit the fan, it's time to cool down. But
precisely. I got that
I can cool
precisely.
down, but the other side can't cool down. And
Yes,
they're
I
like,
know.
no, 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 don't you cool down on me. Don't you have a smile on your face. You need to, step back into the cow pie with me. Don't go out cleaning your shoes. And
Yes,
the question is how to skillfully deal with that type of situation. And I hear
that's
you
what we're
saying that
trying to
you
do.
actually
Excellent.
kind of have to remain in the situation and try to find a more gentle way out of it instead of just dropping it
All right.
outright.
I'm trying to first off teach you the easy way out. And that is what happened when you were stepping into the cow pie. What was going on is before you actually stepped in it? What was the
Wasn't
thing?
paying attention.
What was the trigger that caused you to decide to step into the cow pie and say something irrational? What happened? You know?
Usually not paying attention and it's too late
No, no,
at
no,
the
no.
point
I'm
I
asking
know.
in this case, you've probably got the latest edition of this story hot off the press. Okay, so,
No, no, I don't have a latest edition right now.
okay. Sorry about that. I thought that you were actually talking about a recent event. But that's the whole point then, is to start looking for these triggers. Because normally the person in the family will say something that will set you off. What was that? Because that's the time that we need to sati, not after you've stepped into cow pie. Does that make sense? If we
Yes,
want to
to be
see it
frank,
before we
it's
step into
usually
cow
me
pie,
who says the thing. So the problem is usually on my end. So the trigger is something triggers me to say something, for example, hurtful, and yeah, things go
right?
downhill from there. And then I realize, I I wasn't at my best behavior, and I stated, but
Okay,
it's already too late. The fire has been lit.
right, exactly so. And the sooner that you put the fire out, the better. And not setting it on fire is even better than that. Okay, so you said something hurtful. What are the kinds of things that you say are hurtful? That's the thing to start looking at for yourself. I don't want you to give me a list. We don't have that much time. But anyway, start looking at the kinds of things that you say that are hurtful to your other family, because that's what we've been talking about for quite a while, and that is that they will retaliate on you. And out of compassion for them, if you want to call it that, you're going around not saying hurtful things to your family. Can you be awake enough to that, to not say those hurtful things, even when you feel hurt and you feel like you want to retaliate? Can you at least shut up then? And then the next point is that can you back up to the point of letting them say whatever they say in order to intentionally hurt you, and it doesn't hurt? Got enough joy, if you're quick enough, you can just stand right out of the way and let that hurtful comment just pass you right by, and you don't get angry or upset or anything. But if you do happen to get wounded by that arrow, Don't pick it back out of your hide and then start slinging it back at them. Right? Accept what they're saying. In fact, this is possibly the right moment to say, you know something? You're right about that.
I have
You're
been doing
right
that.
about that you
Yeah.
just said that's so hurtful. Boy, you nailed it. So that's the way of handling that one is that you return joy at that moment rather than giving them the grief, then have to back out after that. So it's a matter of getting there, getting to that sweet spot a little earlier, so that you don't have to spend the time that it takes to clean all of that cow pie off of you while it keeps slinging it at you. Okay, so that's actually the practice that we can have because that's what we do in our own minds anyway. This is the part of the seclusion is to recognize that you sling hurtful comments at yourself also. And then you get wounded by those hurtful comments that we make to ourselves also. This is what I've been referring to as critical thoughts, that we're critical of ourselves. And the whole practice of anapanasati is geared around changing those unwholesome criticisms that we have for ourselves into nurturing kind of thoughts. And if we're fairly good at doing that over and over again, then we get the confidence that we can go out there to the family and be able to do that out there also. That's the confidence is that, yeah, I can hang out with him because I'm not going to be slinging any mud at myself. I'm not going to be slinging any mud at me. And if they sling any mud in just general direction, they miss me. It's not me that they're talking about. It's some old me or it's some delusional me that they've got in their mind that I'm going to remain in charge of this situation. Okay, so that's the kind of attitude that we're going to build up because we've got the confidence that we can keep that joy. So let us say then that in some occasions our joy actually ticks them off because in a way that's what both of you are talking about also. That even though whatever has happened that we've already, let us say, hurled that first insult, that first hurtful mark, which was all it took for an entire bonfire. And so it doesn't matter kind of how much water we want to put on it, that bonfire is going to fire. And the answer to that is at that kind, that's also the time to take a hike, to leave. You say, excuse me. Now, there's actually a sutta that the Buddha had that there's something in like this. If someone actually came to him quite angry about one thing or another, I don't remember that part of it. And the Buddha let this guy rage and rage and rage. And after he raged and settled down, Buddha didn't say much. He kind of smiled at him, which ticked him off all the more, until he finally got tired of the raging. And then the Buddha says, well, let me ask you a question. And the guy says, okay. And the Buddha says, if you, because this was a rich kind of guy, they did parties back then. I think you've heard about the Greeks in the Rome. Everybody that had big money gave big parties. And so the Buddha says, well, what if you threw one of your big parties and nobody came to the party? Who owns the food? I mean, if you bring a big party and a whole lot of people there eat the food, then there's no question about who the food is owned by. But if you had a party and nobody came, then who does the food belong to? And the guy says, well, it would still be mine. And the Buddha says, well, you've brought a huge amount of rage here as a gift. And I reject the gift. I don't kind of need it. So it still belongs to you. All right. So that's one of the things that we can use in our own lives is to recognize that when somebody's angry, please let them have their anger. Don't buy a whole load of it just because they're trying to give it away cheap. Don't buy into it. Let them own and hold their own anger. And in fact, you might start to talk about it like that. Wow, you look really angry right now. Well, how does that feel? Well, right now, I don't feel like that. Do you want me to feel that way? And so you can start to talk to them about it and get them to look at what's going on right now. This is especially true for family, because if you do that 2, 3, or 4 times, your family will begin to wake up. But if you buy into it, you get hurt by the same slings and arrows that you've been hitting and hurting yourself with. Then you're going to retaliate to them, and off we go down that vengeance trail that has no good end. And it's up to you as the Dhamma dude to take the responsibility to say, I'm the one who's going to stop this stuff. I've got several plans for doing it, and the ultimate is the back door, to take a hike. I've always got an out. And because we've already got worked out that all I have to do is just go to the bathroom, or I don't have to storm off at all. In fact, I can just sort of walk out of the house and take a walk or whatever, with the goodbye kiss of, I'll be right back. Hey, I got to go take care of something. I'll be right back, and we can continue our argument. And then let them simmer down for 10 or 15 or 20 minutes. So that's a really, really good way of handling it once somebody's gotten to the point that they want to cling and hold on to you, to keep you there so that they can keep punishing you. I hope that you haven't gotten the situation gone far to where they grab you by the arm and keep you there. Okay? Leave before they do that kind of behavior. So, we've got various techniques. One from not even starting it to, yeah, as soon as it starts, we can redirect it into, yeah, but if it goes too far, we still have a back door to get out of it. The thing of it is all 3 of these require mindfulness. When are you going to wake up? 1, 2, or 3? Hopefully, we can wake up at that first one, that I can shut my mouth without saying that ornery, hurtful, harmful thought that was in my mind. But then as we get even better, we don't let those kind of hurtful, harmful thoughts get into the mind, because if they don't get in the mind, they don't get out of the face. Can't say it if we don't think about it. So we think about those harmful thoughts. The reason for that is because they said something that we didn't like. We chased it down and painted it our own shade of feeling. So in a way, you're saying that you care about your family. What I'm recommend is don't care about them so much, because what you care about is what is harmful, is painful. That, yeah, you can be there with your family and give them what Western people call love and affection and all of that kind of stuff. But basically, what we're talking about is to be civil, to be polite, to be friendly to our family all the time, and to be gracious and grateful to them, being generous to them. So if you're grateful and generous and civil and polite with a great big smile, and you keep practicing that, guess what? They'll begin to notice that. But in fact, you can take that kind of attitude that I'm talking about with those little ingredients and say, yeah, that's how I'm going to treat my family. When mom comes home, we say, hey, Mom, I'm so glad to see you. Wow, did you have a good day or what? Then you can tease her about something. Or if sister comes home, treat her the same way that I just mentioned. But we can actually, when people come around, act like we're glad to see them. I mean, don't you like that yourself? If somebody came up, or you came up to somebody and they just dropped it, wow, I'm so glad to see you. Start treating our family that way, because that would be something that would help in all relations. That if a husband is just civil and polite, can smile, tell the wife that he actually appreciates her and likes what she's doing, and lets her do what she wants to do, he's got a wonderful marriage. What happens with the husband, though, is he wants to be boss. That's what a wreck any relationship is. Who's on top, and you got to do what I tell you to do, and my decisions are more important than yours, and all of that kind of patriarchal stuff that our men are raised on in this society. But in one of the suttas, this is an interesting thing. There's actually a sutta about this, and the sutta is number 31 in the Dinga Nikaya. I just read it recently, to where the Buddha gives advice to laymen. And one of the things that he says in there is the duties that a good husband would have to a wife, as well as the good duties that the wife has to the husband in the time of the Buddha. And the basic things that I have been telling you is exactly what the Buddha recommended. This stuff comes right out of a sutta. But there's one more point in that sutta that I would like to point out, which was, I kind of snuck it in already, so I'll make a big point of it like this. Let whoever is the actual boss of your family be the boss, not you. If you're married and you're living an ordinary life with a wife and maybe kids or whatever, let the wife be the boss. If you live with your mother, let the mom be the boss. Let her know that she's the boss. Allow your life to become easy, because you're always cooperating with the boss of the house that you live in. Now, the wife has duties also. If the man is going to let the wife have be the boss and take care of all the money, she's got a duty to be, let us say, wise with her expenditures of money. But guess what? Women are a whole lot better with money than men are. I think you know that, in our culture anyway. So, except when she goes shopping. But often women go shopping that's actually got a name for it. It's called revenge shopping. That's a major problem between husbands and wives. Is when the wife and the husband gets in a fight, and the wife goes shopping and set up the next fight. So the way to handle that is by giving all the finances right over to the wife. Let you go spend whatever you want to spend. Do whatever you want to do. And in fact, there's a Mullah Nasruddin story. And that the story is out of it's a joke book that I read in India, and it's hilarious because it's all Dhamma all the time, even though it was a mullah, which is Islamic. Uh, but the mullah was sitting there, and some of the people in the town came to him, and he says, "Well, what do you do all day?" And he says, "Oh, well, I only take care of really important things, and I let my wife take care of all of the really unimportant stuff." Vader, you got a big smile on your face. I think you know what we're talking about here. Yeah. And they says, well, what does the wife do? What's all the unimportant stuff? And he says, well, she's the one who tells me where to go and what to do and what kind of clothes to wear. She tells what kind of house we live in, what kind of car we have, what school the kids go to, what kind of television we have. She does all the shopping and she supplies all the food. She takes care of all those unimportant things. He says, well, what do you do? And he says, well, I sit around contemplating what's the nature of happiness and what is all this God stuff? What's that all about? And what is a here now anyway? Those are the kind of things that I take care of. The really, really big, important stuff. Oh, if you can take care of it like that, let your family take care of all of unimportant stuff, and you take care of only the important things. What is the important things? Keeping a smile on your face, keeping harm from coming out of your mouth, keeping harm from even coming into your ears. Become a really, really happy, smiling daddy or whatever role you have in the house. And watch what happens. The whole family just circles around you and you don't have to do anything. Sort of like a wheel with a hub, you know, an old wagon wheel has a big outer thing and then it's got some spokes and then it's got an inner reel with a hub. Well, what's the hub all about? It's nothing but the real part of the hub is that it's just a hole. It's not part of the wheel at all. There's a hole in the center, and that goes on the axle. And so our job then is to become that hole in the middle of the wheel, and you just let everything revolve around, and all we have to do is just go along for the ride. We're kind of like the axle rather than the wheel. So let everything happen around you. Don't get, don't care about anything. Yes, Veda.
Picking up the whole issue with marriage and things like that. I mean, if we are in a concept, societal concept or personal or whatever, mixed, women always find a way to hurt themselves through projecting things and whatever it is. So there is, if we stay in the world, there will always be a residue of harm, even if we are so capable of judging all the factors that are involved and really sneaking everything Dhamma in. We can, because I can't change the concept, the clinging to the concept in the mind of the delinquent.
Okay, all right. Let me give you an example then. The example is an example from this household, and the example is called a coat hanger. You know what a coat hanger is?
A what? A coat hanger?
A coat hanger.
Ah, yeah, coat hanger.
Yes, a coat hanger, right.
Mm-hmm.
And the coat hanger is picked up and held this way in a menacing, shaking kind of way. A slight change of that posture is to hold the right hand up in a way that intends that it's going to come whap down on the side of the face of some child or someone in the family. You know this. You know what this is, don't you? Have you ever seen that? Maybe it's because of the video. Let me, come on. Just hold that hand up, or hold that coat hanger up, and shaking it menacingly. It's a worldwide tradition. I mean, all of you have seen that either happen to you or someone you, as a third party, you saw two other people involved with that kind of thing. Is that right, Yasin? Know what I'm talking about? Yes.
Positive.
All right. So that threatening behavior about the coat hanger, and in that case, at the age of the child gets into the habit of becoming terrified, starts to cry. And in the terror, she can't even listen to what mommy is angry about. And so you've got a kind of a stalemate there to where the mom is getting angrier and angrier because the child is completely in shutdown mode out of fear. And believe me, this happens on too frequent a basis that if you have a child that is shut down in fear, the adult is going to get even more angry. Because the child's not doing what they're told to do. I told you to go clean up your room, and the guy's like this, right? And so this is a recipe for violence. Guess where the violence comes at? The tip of the violence is on that coat hanger. Okay, so now that we've set that scene, how do you, as a third person, objective in the situation, see that one adult is mistreating another one who's in child? And now I'm not talking about the age of the people, I'm talking about the psychological position they're in. The one who's holding the coat hanger, they're the boss, or at least they are in your mind. The one who has got the hand up. Dads will do that with teenage boys, for instance. Dads will do that with their daughter. Moms will do it with the younger kids. So here's how to handle that kind of thing. And that is that as a third party observer, you make note of it by asking the child, is it the coat hanger that you're afraid of? What are you so afraid of? She's not going to hit you. And start talking some adult logic to the child. Then you go to mom and say, wow, that's a really good coat hanger you have. You can really terrify a child with it. And start speaking it like that. Okay, so over a course of time, after that coat hanger has come out 2 or 3 times, it becomes the family joke. Coat hanger becomes the joke. Anytime mom raises her voice, you say, hey, mom, go get your coat hanger. Or if you see mom carrying a whole bunch of coat hangers down the hall because she's doing the laundry, you duck and say, oh no, there's a whole bunch of coat hangers coming. Okay, so you begin to make light of what's going on within your family. And you'll find family dynamics like that. Look at the situation of which 2 people are most likely to go after each other. Find out some sort of tool or mechanism that is associated between them, and then you can turn that into a joke. That is an excellent way of maintaining a beautiful harmony in the family, because now everybody's joking about the coat hanger, when before the coat hanger represented 2 different opposite sides, one great fury and the other one great trepidation. And now it's a joke for everybody.
So first we deal with our own fear, and we find a way to put it out there so everyone is on the same level, let's say, and however long it takes.
In the beginning, they're not going to be on the same level. One's going to be
Exactly.
a full-on angry parent, and the other one is going to be full-on whimpering child.
However long it takes.
Right, and you're going to be the adult in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and the adult in the room is going to find a way that is some sort of connection between the parent and the child that you see in there, and start manipulating and massaging that. Make a point of it, like I'm using the coat hanger as an example. The raised arm would be another one. If when mom raises her arm like that, about to slap the child, you raise your arm too. Start making a joke out of little things. Now that's not going to help mom the first time. She's going to get really ticked off if you do it the first time. So it's all about, again, repetitive, over and over and over again, until it has the energy taken out of it. And now it can become a joke. It could become one of the family jokes. In fact, we have coat hangers, one of our family jokes. I was able to manage that. And now it's just, and in fact, we haven't had an angry situation over 3-4 years ago. But it's still part of the family joke. In fact, training the dog with the coat hanger. All we have to do is take that coat hanger and shake at that dog, and that dog will. There are other kind of techniques, but they all fit under the umbrella of what I'm talking about here. This is how you deal with members of your family who do not know how to deal with each other. You deal with it in a situation so that you don't cause harm, because there's already enough harm going on. And if they try to harm you, stand out of the way of that arrow. Don't let them hit you with it. And in fact, one of the things you can say is, ha ha, you told me that last time, and I knew that you were right, so I changed already. And make a joke of it like that. That's, in fact, a very, very good point. Is to probably anything that they've said to you, they've said it to you before, right? When they try to hurt you, they already know where your buttons are. They're going to go after their favorite button. So you've heard this all before. So instead of getting hit with it, just like we always do, we can recognize that, oh, you've said that before, and I got my lesson and I learned my lesson. Thank you. Thank you for repeating the lesson. I got it the first time. There's a story about that, and thank it's one of the politicians in America, Mitch McConnell, and he has the expression, "There's no education in the second kick of a mule." Well, this is exactly what we're talking about here: is that that person in your family has criticized you before, they've hurt you before. Why don't we learn that lesson the first time or the second time? Why do they have to kick us again with it? In a way, you could say that when they are hurting you the most is possibly when they're the most honest about you. They're digging like a doctor down to the deepest part of that wound to cut it out. And here you are yelping instead of saying, "Thank you, Mama." So that's the way to begin to teach, to treat this, is that you don't retaliate for the harm that they do you if you can wake up soon enough. And if you wake up soon enough, then there's all kinds of playful options that you can take that wind up not hurting them back, lightening the situation, making it joyful, gleeful. So, what do you think, Asin?
All very useful and practical advice. Can I ask a more philosophical question related to this? Which would be,
I'd have to grow a beard.
um, do you agree that a central point, of getting out of dukkha is letting go of attachment, or as you use the word, caring?
Well, if you understand the teaching of the Buddha, that I talk about it all the time, but I don't tell you
Mm,
that I'm talking about it all the time, and that is paticca samuppada.
mm,
Dependent origination is the basis for all of this kind of stuff. So, if we understand that there is no self or even any selfishness in the body, the feelings, the mind's objects, or any of that kind of stuff, that our selfishness comes from uh, because we feel a certain way, that we want to control things that way. Okay, that's the attachment that you're talking about, and attachment can also be seen as clinging.
yes.
So whatever that is being attached to, one of the significant parts of it is that there's an arm there that's doing the attaching. So the attachment has the attached, the attachment, and the attacher, the one who does the attaching, the one who's doing the clinging, okay, or the one who's doing the caring.
The question here would be, as a layperson engrossed in families, jobs, and so on and so forth, there seem to be attachments that the other people in the world wouldn't really want you to drop. So some attachments are considered undroppable.
Let them have their attachments. Let them have their attachments. Your job is to not get attached to their having attachments. Don't care about their attachments. Let mom do whatever mom or whoever it is in the family that has those attachments. All you can do, as at the right time with joy, point out that attachment in a way that they can see, does that attachment cause harm and suffering? Just like I'm trying to do with you right now, over here's how you're attaching. You're attaching to um, other people being attached. And that causes you harm and pain. But let's say this way, there is a guy named Joe that lives somewhere out in the desert in New Mexico. and he has a really, really bad habit of whatever description. Do you care? I mean, do you?
Nope.
You don't even know the guy and you care. You don't even what bad habit he has and you care. Then if you do care about Joe out in the desert who has some bad habit, then you're going to be suffering right here, right now, whenever you think about whatever bad habit you think he's got. But if you could just leave Joe alone out there in the desert with his bad habits, then you're good to go. Okay? So now all you have to do is understand that Joe out in their desert has the same influence upon you as the people who live right there in the house with you. Whatever bad habits they've got, all you can do is make yourself feel bad about their bad habits. So don't care about their bad habits. Let them have the bad habits. That may be let us say, there may be an exception based upon the age of the child. There are times when you would intervene, but basically I'm talking about the way that you would deal with other people, especially adults. The way you deal with other adults is don't care about what they're attached to. Because if you care about what they're attached to, you're going to hurt just like they do. Stop caring about what other people care about.
Yes, but they care. So I care about what they are attached to, and they are attached to the fact that I should be attached, back. So
and so their question is, why don't you care? Is that their question? Why don't
yes.
you care? Okay.
Or why would you stop caring? Why would you want to stop caring?
And
so for a lay person, it's hard to comprehend the fact, that you could be, I guess, living skillfully in the world and still taking care for things without caring about things, let's say.
Right. Okay. So we've got that now. So the question is, are we going to answer that question with a statement? Hello, Patrick. Welcome aboard.
Hello. Thank you.
We've been at it for about an hour.
Oh God. Is this the winter time change?
Well, you changed your clock. We didn't, or I didn't.
Okay.
All of you guys changed your clock.
Yeah.
So anyway, when the question, by the way, is at this point is that you and a member of a family all together cared about something, and now you don't care about it anymore. And they're coming and saying, why don't you care anymore? Is that basically the question?
Yes.
Uh-huh. And the answer would be then basically asking or answering a question with a question. Like, well, what advantage do you gain in caring? Along with it, is there any disadvantage in caring? Like a politician, for instance. Then you care about him in a way that's different when he wins. But if he loses his election, then you care differently. Right? So this person that you're talking to, Yasin, the question for you to ask them is that is there an occasion to where things go sour or whatever, and now because you care so much, you hurt. You're in pain because you care. So maybe it would be a good idea to not care so much. That's a little bit of Dhamma right there. I mean, that can be done in just a one or two sentence exchange with someone and kind of leave them with their mouth open, like, right, it is painful. Maybe I shouldn't care so much. But we're using the word care here as a substitute for the English word clinging, and the Pali word is upadana, which is that pulling and grasping, clinging, holding kind of thing. And that here's an example of how that happens in politics. If somebody votes for someone and that person wins, and then turns out to be a very, very bad person or whatever, they will continue to vote for them because they've already got an investment in them. I voted for him, therefore I am him. That's one of the ways that we cling. We cling to certain politicians, certain political parties, and whatnot like that. And we're guaranteed to be in pain. Why? Because those two political parties are out there at war. And as I've told you just recently, that the Buddha recommends that you stay away from wars. You could be collateral damage. So staying out of other people's battles. So if they're inviting you to come join their battle, like why don't you come and protest against global warming or something like that? Then the answer to that would be, sure, go right ahead. Go enjoy yourself. Go to the rally. Oh, you want me to go to the rally too? Well, all I can do is help people get cheered up. I'm not going to really care about whether they're warm or not, so long as they're happy. So that would be one of the things about, even if you had to go to a rally or something like that, everybody that's at a rally, they're just there mutually to stir each other up and cling all the harder. And you show up with a great big smile on your face saying, ha ha, yeah, can't we cheer this crowd up a little bit? Why do you have to care so much? Cling so tightly? Can we not be satisfied even though we don't get everything that we want? As we begin to understand that we can be satisfied even if we can't get what we want, then we really kind of stop caring so much about it, because we used to count on it, that my happiness depended upon me getting my way. That's a guaranteed direction of dukkha. The right way to do it is, I'm going to be okay even if I don't get what I want. And as we mature in our spiritual life, we begin to start looking at the things that we want that are painful, and we stop wanting them. Start wanting wholesome things that are not going to be painful if we don't get them. And one of the ways that we can handle that is by always wanting something that's really easy to get. Always want things that are really easy to get, and then you're going to be satisfied, because the main reason that we are ever dissatisfied is because we don't get what we want, because we're ignorantly wanting the wrong things. So, in that regard, you can talk to them about this in the sense of recognizing that it is less painful when you don't care. It's less painful if you don't care. So, if Dad
The
is
counter
there,
argument from the other side would be, but you should care, and the pain is good because it shows you care, and caring is important for, things X, Y, and Z, and whatever, the different situation entails, the things are.
say that again now.
So the counter argument from the non-Dhamma informed person would be that you should care at least for, some minimal amount of things, like, the people closest to you and so on and so forth. And the pain is required and it is needed because you should care. And I don't know how, to resolve that thing.
All right.
Unless, the only thing I can think of is just shut my mouth and keep quiet and do whatever I'm doing and try to navigate the situation
Right.
skillfully.
That's always the best thing to do. Sometimes that's hard. Let me give you this example. The example is that the lady has a sick dog and she brings it into the vet, and they lay it up on that big steel table. And now the vet is inspecting the dog and finding something there. The vet is caring for the dog. And whatever happens to the dog, he can handle it. But the owner of the dog is standing there with the dog on the operating table, and she really cares about the dog. And so that means that she's going to be in a great deal of suffering before, during, and after the procedure, especially when the dog dies in the procedure. But if the veterinarian cares, then he's going to get burnout and he's going to stop being a vet. He has to not care about the animal in order for him to properly care for them. But in fact, if you care about something and then you don't get what you want and then you feel bad, That's ignorant caring. Wise caring would be that you do, so wise caring then would be the compassion of helping to remove the damage that's already been done without creating new damage. But that person that you're referring to here is actually creating new damage, thinking that, oh, I should care, therefore I should feel bad. Well, that's built into the culture. That's really built into the culture. You know, you're supposed to suffer quite a bit. And in fact, of the culture, the Christian culture is what gave the word dukkha, the word English suffering. The word dukkha doesn't really mean suffering, but look at it in the sense that Christianity has this quality of suffering, and it has to do also with wrongdoing, getting caught about the wrongdoing, and whether or not you're going to get punished or whether or not you're going to get forgiven. And so if you are already forgiven, or excuse me, if you're already suffering, if you're, it's like the word sorry has creeped into our language on such a common basis that it almost has lost all the meaning. But look at the word sorry. What does the word sorry means is that I want you to forgive me for some wrongdoing or wrong transgression that I have done. Unless you're saying it as a joke. Like, sorry about that. But other than that, we use that word sorry way too often, but its original usage was to say that you're sorry in order to prove to the person that you've offended that you've already been punished and they've got no more right to punish you further. So that means that the easy thing to do is just to apologize to them. You might even use the word sorry in a funny kind of way, but the important thing is you don't have to feel sorry, but maybe an apology is exactly what we need to say. And so you can be the vet rather than the dog owner. Do what needs to be done out of compassion, out of being able to eliminate the suffering. But generally, when people are having a pity party, like is what you're sounding like here, don't join that pity party. Cheer them out of it. You can find a way to do that. If you think about it, how can you cheer this guy up or this woman up? The one who doesn't like it because you don't care enough. So tell her that you love her anyway. Yeah, I don't care about what you care about, but I care about you. You can say things like that, or I care for you. Start monitoring your language like that, because the thoughts that we have will create then the language that we use. But in fact, there's a little jingle, and that is whatever whatever you feel, you will have a thought. Whatever thought, that'll be what you say. Whatever you say, that's what will be your actions. Whatever your actions are become your habits, and your habits then become your destiny. So we can attack that little thing all along. One of the most important qualities is to recognize that you are not fixed in your destiny. You can change. But in order to change, you got to change these habits, which means we've got to come back and have wholesome thoughts, one after another, after another, after another, after another, until we grow some new neurons that are not so harmful. So that's the repetitive part. We have to do this over and over and over again. If we have to do it over and over and over again in our own mind, guess what? That means that whoever is in your family, when you're working with them that way, remember that you're going to have to say this stuff over and over and over again. And if you do, like propaganda, it starts to work. They start to believe it. You can, in fact, cheer anybody up. A good expert could do it in 60 seconds, but anybody can do it in 5 minutes. Anybody could cheer somebody up in 5 minutes. if you know how to do it. That's the whole point, is, Yasin, is to tell yourself and get for sure that you know that you can handle this situation. But you need to get your mojo up there to where you know that you can handle whatever they throw at you, because they'll find various ways of trying to get at you. Like saying, oh, you don't care. How painful is that? If you let it be painful, then you're going to react and you say, yeah, darn right, I don't care. Isn't that great? If you cared, you'd hurt. If you don't care, you don't hurt. Then you can use a little ditty, mind over matter. If you don't mind, it don't matter. And so be light and playful with it. But when it comes in the form of heaviness, oh, you don't care. How dare you don't care? Don't you know it's important? All of that kind of stuff. They want you to buy into it. They want you to feel bad. And then you're going to retaliate on them because they did get to you. They hurt you. Well, the best thing to do is just stand right out of the way. Don't you care? I mean, look how important it is. Don't you care? Yes. No, I don't care. I'll help you fix it, but I ain't going to feel bad because it's broken.
Carl had his hand up for a while.
Pardon?
Carl had his hand up.
Oh, Damrata kind of answered it, because I was just gonna use the example I think I heard Amaya use. If somebody comes up at work and says, like, have you seen that football game on a Sunday? It was great, and you don't care about football, you just play along. Oh yeah. Who won? What's the result? You just kind of sometimes play into caring as well to bring some joy into people. If somebody says to you, oh, you don't care about this, you can also play along and actually play into caring it, just to make them see that there is a joy in you about things, not essentially about the thing itself, but there is a joy part of you in you, I guess.
I like
None
that
of that makes
approach.
sense, but
What you're saying is, yeah, I don't care, but I care enough to help you feel better.
I see this as kids, like when we're playing, we play pretend games, and then the kids want adults to play pretend with them. So they come and drag you by your arm and they tell you, hey, let's pretend I'm invisible, or let's pretend I can fly. And you play along with that just to give some joy.
So, a global warming advocate, you can see them just trying to fly. And you can play along. Exactly. That's exactly what we're talking about, is bring some joy to let them, help them to understand that it's not as dangerous or difficult as they have been feeling about it, because the feeling that they had came from the attachment or the caring, not the event itself. Just like Joe out in the desert, you don't care about him because we're just talking about a concept, right? So that whatever it is that they care about is just a concept. Example, because of the timing, is politics. Does it really matter who won the election? Does it really matter? It matters if you want it to matter, and it doesn't matter if you don't care. So you can take that almost to any place. In other words, you do not have to debunk Christianity to every Christian you meet. I used to do that. I was really good at it. They hated me. But now I don't care. So that's the way of going, is you can care for something, just don't care about it. And you could actually use that language. When they say, oh, you don't care about it, you can say, oh, I really care for it. I'll help you fix it. It's not going to feel bad when it dies. Does anybody have any final thing? How about you, Christoph? You got anything to say?
I've really enjoyed listening to this talk. There's many meaningful angles. Really, really good talk. I just wanted to add something from my personal experience. When you go to a family reunion, it's better not to talk about three things: religion, politics, and sports. If you avoid these three topics, already half of the unuseful discussions are over.
Exactly.
That's all.
And if you can even narrow it down further than that, I'm sure that we could eliminate a whole lot of unwholesome, unuseful topics to talk about. So we could also then add to the list on the other side of what are the things that are worth talking about, because the list of things not worth talking about is really big. Okay. Yeah. So talking about well-being. Talk about the things that are working that works correctly. Talk about good health. Talk about things that are joyful. Talk about comedians. In fact, George Carlin is a good thing to discuss. Oh, you haven't heard about George Carlin? Hold, let me get the video out and I'll show you this tape, and we'll all howl with laughter for 10 minutes over George. That would be kind of thing that you would do in a situation like that, is to always go for doing something really light.
Yeah.
Talk about the food at the table. Congratulate all the cooks. That should take 10 minutes of the thing. So find ways of congratulating, cheering people up, that kind of thing. That's what we need at those reunions and parties like that. So, anybody got anything else to say? Jamie, you got something to say?
No. I'm just feeling sleepy.
All right. Veda, do you have any closing remarks?
Thank you all. It's a pleasure.
Mm-hmm. How about you, Tino?
It's just nice to hang out with a bunch of friends aspiring the same. It's so nice.
Good. Patrick, do you have anything to say? You came a little later.
I guess I have to see the recording and see what it was all about.
Okay.
But it seems to be about overcarrying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right. We can care just enough, but we almost always care too much.
Yeah.
That's what causes the problem, is that we want it our way. We have to care. Right. So anyway, guys, this has been a good talk. I really enjoyed it. I hope you got, this is kind of like a group going. Let's keep this conversation going on our Sangha UK, so that we can post videos or GIFs or pictures or whatever like that, and keep the conversation going. That we're wanting to build friendship, Sangha here, mutual high quality friends. So anyway, we'll see you guys later.
Bye-bye. See you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.